Today we're going to cover topics detailed in our book and how it can be used as a great resource for parents, students, and counselors. Our aim is to demystify the process of European undergraduate admissions and provide insights into the cultural and academic nuances, as well as ensuring a smooth and successful journey toward higher education in Europe. Before we dive in, I just want to point out that we will be recording this webinar, so we do have the microphones muted and video is off for everyone joining us today. My camera will be off as well. At the end, we should have some time for a short question and answer session, so please feel free to add any questions that you might have in the chat. And when submitting a question, please include your email address so that we can follow up with you to provide an answer if we do not get to all the questions. Okay, with that said, let's get started. First, we should go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm Jennifer, and I'm going to be presenting to you today, and Tara will moderate the question and answer portion of the webinar. So we've been living in Europe for years and understand the unique challenges faced by expats and international students when trying to navigate the university landscape in Europe. With that in mind, we started Educated Abroad and wrote this book to share our expertise and experience and to provide a roadmap for parents, students, and educators interested in learning more about enrolling at universities in Europe. So now that you know who we are, let us show you how we can help. As I mentioned before, we will cover a few main topics related to enrolling at universities in Europe. These will include the benefits of studying in Europe, where to study in Europe, the basics of applying to universities in Europe, key considerations to keep in mind about how it works, and we will also provide you with some useful takeaways and additional resources to help you through the process. First, let's start by taking a look at the many benefits of studying in Europe. A study from the University of California at Merced found that students who study abroad are twice as likely to find employment after graduation. Studying in Europe also allows students to grow personally by seeing the world and experiencing a new culture, as well as increasing independence. Students will enhance their academics by learning a new language or gaining fluency in an additional language, and by gaining international experience for resumes and applications. Students will also expand their network for future opportunities by making connections both socially and professionally. Studying in Europe also provides many opportunities in an increasingly competitive and global workplace. So the benefits of the experience and learning will last a lifetime. Next, we're going to discuss the Bologna process, which is a system that aims to enhance the comparability and compatibility of higher education systems and degrees throughout Europe. The goal is to ensure that the competitiveness of the programs and the employability of the students is able to be measured across countries in order to allow for international mobility in our ever-increasingly global workplace. One component of the process is the ECTS point system. ECTS stands for European Credit Transfer System. This system uniformly designates a specific number of credits to different academic qualifications throughout Europe. For example, most bachelor's degrees throughout Europe are valued at 180 to 240 ECTS credits. These are transferable and recognized at universities across all member countries in the European higher education area. Therefore, by studying in Europe, you will receive a degree widely recognized throughout the world. Our book covers 16 countries in Europe, and all of these participate in the Bologna process. Now that you're considering studying in Europe, the question is, where should you go to study? So next, we're going to move on to where, in particular, students might want to explore when looking at universities to study at in Europe. There are so many wonderful countries to choose from, so there really is something for everyone. In our book, we cover countries throughout Europe that tend to be the most popular options among international and expat students who are looking to study at undergraduate programs taught completely in English in Europe. When looking for an undergraduate program in Europe that is taught in English, you may initially think of England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, which makes sense because those are English-speaking countries. And they do have thousands of excellent programs to consider. However, there are also many undergraduate programs taught completely in English in countries where English is not the official language. As you can see in this map, there are undergraduate study options available throughout Europe that are taught completely in English. The darker the blue color, the more English taught programs there are available. You can find English language programs in the Netherlands, Italy, France, Scandinavia, Spain, just to name a few. So when choosing to be educated in Europe, you will be part of an international community that includes students from around the world. There's something for everyone, and we would be happy to help you find the best program to suit your individual needs. There are 24 official languages recognized in the European Union, and as such, multilingualism is built into the EU's Charter of Fundamental Rights. The aim is to facilitate communication between countries while at the same time protecting language diversity and learning. As a matter of fact, nearly 90% of Europeans study English as a second language during their secondary education, which makes English one of the most common languages throughout the EU. With that in mind, however, it's important to realize that when studying an English-taught program at a university where English is not the official language of the country, while your classes will be in English, everything else may be in the native language of the country, such as day-to-day life, like shopping at the grocery store, or things like dealing with the university registrar's office or processing your student visa. It is, however, very common for universities to have student services available to help international students navigate these things so that they have support. Now let's take a look at the basics of applying to universities in Europe. The unique challenges faced by families living abroad or those considering sending their students abroad can make navigating the landscape of European higher education seem overwhelming. However, fear not, our book is crafted with you in mind. A comprehensive resource tailored to empower and guide parents, students, and educators alike. Applying to undergraduate programs at universities in Europe may be different from your home country. So here's what you need to know. In Europe, you apply to a specific program, not to the whole university. For the most part, when applying to study as an undergraduate in Europe, you do not apply to a university in general, but rather to a specific undergraduate program or programs at that university. The undergraduate programs are similar to a declared major in the United States, for example. Knowing the area of study on which you would like to focus is an essential first step when researching universities and programs. As students, you need to ask yourself, what am I interested in studying, and what do I plan to do with this degree? Answering these questions will help you focus on programs that meet your needs and your plans for the future. In Europe, the application process is strongly focused on academics. Our book covers the application procedures and how offers and acceptance to programs is handled in the various countries throughout Europe. When applying to a program at a university in Europe, it is important to realize that eligibility for programs and acceptance into them is highly dependent on a student's academic profile, not their holistic profile. What do we mean by this? Well, it means that extracurricular activities and outside interests are often not detailed on the application and do not influence acceptance to a program. It also means that poor academic performance cannot be offset by stellar extracurricular activities. However, one way to highlight this extracurricular information is to showcase it on your CV or resume, which is often a required component of the application process. Similarly, universities in Europe do not track demonstrated interest or legacy status. Next, you need to reflect on why you want to attend a given institution and enroll in that particular program. and how you will use the degree in the future. This will allow you to answer the why for questions regarding your chosen subject. Our book covers admissions requirements like essays and CVs for each country. If an essay or interview is required, it is important that you craft your response with the mindset that universities want to know why you want to study the subject and what you will do with the degree. Avoid detailing how you spend your free time outside of academics, unless it can be directly tied to your interest in the subject area and the program of study to which you are applying. Now we're going to look at the process of how you go about studying in Europe. The first step in the process is to explore what programs are available and find programs that meet your needs. Again, remember that you're applying to a specific program, not the university in general. This step is where you need to be researching what and where you want to study. So it's important to really take a moment to identify what your career and educational goals are. This will allow students to specifically identify what programs they want to study and where they want to study. The next step is to focus and prepare so that you can be competitive and have a profile that matches the requirements of the program or programs to which you would like to apply. Academic profile is the main consideration for the European undergraduate application process. So having a solid focus and planning which classes you take throughout your final 3 years of high school is very important. A specific undergraduate program may have minimum grade requirements or particular classes that are required to have been taken. So it's important that you make sure that you're on track to meet those requirements in order to ensure that you're eligible to apply for the program. This will help set you up for success. The final step is to apply and decide where you will go. The application process in Europe is more straightforward and simple compared to the application process in the US, for example. Our book covers the specific timelines of the application cycle for each country and what is required for the application. These begin in the fall of your final year of high school, with many programs having rolling admissions and deadlines, which impact your chances of acceptance. So it's recommended that you apply as early as possible. As you can see, it's a process, but it's worth the effort. Now, we've covered the basics of applying to universities in Europe, so let's delve into the country-specific nuances of how it works. Our book covers general country information, including application methods and deadlines, admissions requirements, visa and tuition information, and an overview of the higher education structure for 16 countries throughout Europe. For easy reference, each chapter of our book covers a different European country, providing both a detailed country-specific overview and a snapshot summary chart. When applying in Europe, everything depends on the country, the university, the program, and the profile of the individual student. Therefore, there are a few key considerations to keep in mind. The first consideration is to make sure that you understand the higher education structure in the country or countries of interest. For example, how many years does an undergraduate program take to complete in that country? Then it is important to understand the application methods and deadlines for the country. These vary from country to country, but they also vary from program to program within a given university. Many countries have limits on the number of programs to which a student can apply. This is the number of programs, not the number of universities. Next, it's important to make sure that you are able to fulfill the admissions requirements. This can vary by country, university, or even program. These requirements are considered the minimum. So if you do not meet the minimum requirements, it's best to find a different program for which you do qualify, or take additional courses to meet the requirements prior to applying. Another important consideration is the cost of tuition for the programs. Each country has its own set of rules for this, often with different tuition categories, such as local and international tuition fee status, for example. Sometimes this is based on the nationality of the student's passport. Sometimes it's based on the student's place and duration of residence, etc. It really depends on the rules for that country or university and the student's individual profile. And finally, you must understand the visa requirements, if any, for your particular profile. Again, the nationality and residency of the student may affect the need for a visa or not. As you could probably tell from the previous slide, much of the application process in Europe depends on the profile of the individual applicant. Applying to universities in Europe varies based on a student's profile and goals, as well as the country and program of study. Since many factors affect a student's application, you will often be told, it depends. We understand how frustrating this can be for parents and students, and even counselors, who just want to figure out what their options are and want a straight answer about how it will work for their specific case. At Educated Abroad, we know the nuances of the various application processes and how they vary by country throughout Europe. While eligibility to programs will depend on an individual profile, there are, however, certain country-specific standards that one can look to for guidance. And we've gathered that information in one place for easy reference in our book. If needed, we do also offer additional individualized services to provide more specific and detailed information for your particular case. Okay, so let's just review some of the key takeaways that we've covered here today. We hope that this information has been useful and highlights some of the key takeaways that we cover in our book and how it can be useful as a resource when applying to universities in Europe. There are over 25,000 English taught programs throughout Europe. Undergraduate degrees from European universities are well regarded and recognized worldwide. Remember that when looking at your options, you're applying to the program, not to the whole university. Eligibility requirements, timelines, and application processes vary from country to country, university to university, and sometimes even program to program. Most importantly, studying in Europe is definitely worth it, so why not explore the possibilities? At Educated Abroad, we feel strongly that traveling and seeing the world is an education in and of itself. So why settle for just a semester abroad? Typically, students return from a semester abroad and rave about what a great experience it was and how they wish they had had more time there. So, getting your entire undergraduate degree in Europe is a great option that provides an incredible experience and opens up a world of possibilities. So if you're thinking about it, we think that you should really go for it and explore your options. It may seem like the great unknown, but we think that you will be glad that you did it. Throughout this webinar, we've mentioned our book, which serves as a great one-stop resource for all things related to searching, applying, and enrolling at European universities. If you're interested in getting a copy, you can scan the QR code on this slide or find it directly at the Amazon website in your country. There are various ways that schools can use our book as a resource to help support students. First, it's a great book to have in your school library as a resource. There are also some schools who provide a copy to each of their students embarking on the university process so that they can have it as a personal resource material at home for both the students and parents. If you're a school counselor or an administrator joining us today who's interested in making a bulk purchase to provide to your students, please reach out to us to make that happen. We're also available to do author visits, webinars, or info sessions as part of back to school night or university info sessions at your school. So we're happy to participate in those or at any tables you might have at university fairs that you might host. Again, we're flexible and happy to help work with schools in whatever capacity we can to help support your students. I think we're kind of running up against the clock a little here, so we're going to need to wrap this up, but we really appreciate everyone joining us today and hope that our book can serve as a valuable resource for your school community. If you're a parent or student who would like personalized support to guide you through the requirements and procedures and provide detailed timelines and project management tools to organize the applications for your individual profile, Educated Abroad can work with you one-on-one. And if you're looking for individual or school-wide support, please reach out to us at info@educatedabroad.com.